I mean, if you're gonna use it that badly, you might as well just give it to me. Thank you to our final patrons, Strawbones, Red4765, and a Midnight Gemlord. Now, before I have this breakdown and discussion on how Lostvayne, the sacred treasure of Meliodas of the 7 deadly sins, was underutilized, please and leave your own thoughts on whether or not Lostvayne is underutilized in the comment section down below. Leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure to hit that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support for as low as $1 a month, including exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. Now, let's hop into the discussion. What's up, guys? Lostvayne here, and yeah, honestly, after seeing Lostvayne recently in action through Meliodas, and thinking back on it throughout the general series of 7 Deadly Sins as a whole, when he had Lostvayne, which is admittedly for a much more limited time period than I thought upon retrospection, he still kind of just didn't spam it as much as he should have. And I think that's the main reason I think it's underutilized. The ability of Lostvayne is much more valuable than what Lostvayne actually is. Because, in essence, Lostvayne, when you really break it down, you get truly to brass tacks, all it is a really strong sword. That's it. That's all it is. You can get a really strong sword to do many things for you. Obviously, we're in the world of 7 Deadly Sins, where having a stick makes you infinitely more stronger than you are without a stick. So any sword is a good sword. But I think Meliodas uses Lostvayne too much for just what it normally is. He uses it too much for sword property, and he doesn't necessarily use its ability. Now, notably, all the other sacred treasures also get very rare ability usage. Like, it's just a general thing in the series. They're just primarily used as their base weapon. The only one that I'd say gets extra usage out of its sacred treasure release is the Spirit Spear, because the Spirit Spear does everything right and doesn't do anything wrong, other than the fact that we haven't seen all of its forms for some reason. But with that being the case, you can look at Gideon. Diane used her sacred treasure release of Gideon Lightning Rod, like, what, twice against Baal, and then never again. We saw Bon, when he finally got Kurochus, he used Hyper Concentration once, and then never again. We don't even know what Alden's Sacred Treasure Release is, and Rita used Charge and Fire once. Unless you want to argue its property is just holding extra sunshine magic, and then in that case, it was used pretty well by Escanor in the invasion of the demon-controlled Camelot. I'll give him that. But then look at Gothers. Does Gothers even have a Sacred Treasure release? Like, I don't remember. I don't think it does. It just can shapeshift. But I'm not sure if that's a Sacred Treasure release in the same way that the True Spirit Spear is a Sacred Treasure release or not. So maybe it doesn't even have a Sacred Treasure release revealed. And then all that leaves is Lostvayne and Alden. And Alden doesn't have one. And Lostvayne has arguably, next to Chastiful, the most useful ability. Now, is it entirely uncertain on whether or not these physical clones that Lostvayne produces are actually relative to Meliodas in terms of strength, but lacking in magic, and or they're literally just splitting himself up into multiple different people and taking half his power and dividing it into however many clones he makes? I think it's pretty up in the air. Like, it says it only splits magic, or it says it divides the combat class entirely, but then we get to see them all react in unison, which shouldn't be possible if they're only like half as strong as he is, unless you want to make the argument that base Meliodas normally is just way stronger than what's initially implied, considering he's able to full react to everything. But regardless of that, having clones of any variety is so useful that there's no reason that Meliodas shouldn't have opened every single battle with it. But you know what he does use it for? One thing. Or he uses that tactic one time against Fraudrin of all people. And I get it. No, I don't. That's the thing. That's the point of the video. I don't get why he only did it against Fraudrin. Because as you saw, it was a really useful tactic. Send in a clone. Get them to weaken the enemy. Butter them up a little bit. That's half your power going to waste. But hey, it's still half your power throwing some hands. And the thing that makes it even crazier is that we know these clones have full access to whatever power Meliodas himself can wield. Meaning they can go Demon Mark. So say he releases one clone while he's in base. Then makes that clone go Demon Mark, which we know is a 2x amp. He essentially has another version of him running around, at least when it's equivalent to his base state. And I don't know, 2 base Meliodas is kind of crazy. Imagine if Meliodas, instead of fighting the Demon King in a 2-on-1 with Elizabeth, he jumped him and made it a 3-on-1 and had a demon mark version of him running around alongside him, pummeling the life out of zeldris, making sure that he can get out of there and the Demon King can get kicked out. But no, he just doesn't do that. He only brings out the clones for a full counter, which barely does anything. And then he puts them away. Why? I don't know why he didn't jump anybody. Gawain, we start to see maybe the only reason why he doesn't utilize it that much in the Gawain fight, because admittedly with all the clones being weaker and Meliodas himself not being relative to Gawain at all, jumping Gawain didn't really do much, especially considering Gawain is an experienced warrior who's probably able to read attacks from multiple directions, and probably has at least similar battle tactics to Meliodas, considering they are both battle-hardened demons. They probably learned how to fight the same. So I can see why that may have discouraged Meliodas, but like, dog, that was the one time that was a bad idea. Like every other scenario, no matter what, you should pull those out, especially considering they don't seem to consume any stamina. Meliodas never gets tired after making clones. It's not like Meliodas' power literally gets split in half. It's not the multiform technique where he loses half of his power. No, the weapon's ability is to replicate half of his power in another physical clone, which then divides the power based on how many clones he wants to make. So imagine you had 2 clones that then went into assault mode. Then you basically have 3 Meliodases running around. And that's the crazy thing. The ability to just make clones is insane in of itself, whether they are as powerful as you or not as powerful as you, because multiple opponents, no matter what their power level is disorienting. Now, I don't know if any of you have been jumped. I hope not. I hope all of you have gone your entire lives without ever being jumped in a fight. But I can tell you, not from personal experience, thankfully enough, but I can tell you that even if you have one big dude that you're mainly fighting, one dude that weighs 120 pounds soaking wet, hitting you in the back of the head as you're fighting for your life against the big dude, makes the fight a whole lot harder, even though that punch hits a lot lesser than one used by the big dude. And the same case applies here for Meliodas. Even if the clones are weaker, he should have pulled them out against Joel and Gloxinia. He had Lostvayne on deck. He was prepared. He was ready. He should have whipped that bad boy out and literally just done that. He was already able to sucker punch, smack the taste out of the mouth of Droll in base. Yo, let that clone pop out a little bit of demon mark on him. And then bada bing, bada boom, you can handle both of them at the same time. One of the biggest issues in that fight is that he's facing 2 combatants, as if he doesn't have a weapon that could magically even the playing field literally in his hands. I don't know. I don't know why Nakaba would decide to limit it, right? And to be fair, once again, this argument kind of applies to all the Sacred Treasures and their abilities, because Nakaba is very rare to use them at all. The series is over 300 chapters long, but for some reason Nakaba's like, you know what, I'm going to introduce this concept, make it really, really powerful and useful, and have them, like, never use it. Seriously, like, in every single fight Meliodas got into, he should be jumping people. Like, I know, maybe Nagaba did it because he was afraid to, like, show the Naruto implications of it. Like, oh no, our blonde main protagonist is using the ability to clone himself to jump people all the time. Maybe we shouldn't do this, but I'm sorry, dude, you introduced it, so it should always be done. And the thing is, it's not like jumping people is the only use for these creatures. Nakaba himself showed that this ability can be used in a very unique, very interesting way that someone like Meliodas, the only wielder of the weapon and the only person that has this technique that's still alive, should have been able to do consistently. And that was the full counter wombo combo that led to Nemesis, the 7 Deadly Sins combined attack. If he was ever faced with opponents that were more powerful than him, like hypothetically, when he got jumped by all of the 10 commandments, you know what he should have done? He should have made 2 clones, or more, you never know, considering he could just make a whole bunch of them, and send them off into the sky on some demon wings and have them just start full countering a Hellblaze ball. Just back and forth, 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 back and forth. And even if it starts at a fraction of Meliodas' own power, I don't know, trust me, multiplying things by 2 over and over and over and over again can make things pretty darn powerful. So then, to attack all the 10 commandments at once, considering at this point he seemed to not mind about ending Zeldris' life, unless he figured Zeldris would survive the revenge counter because of the Demon King's magic that he knew he had. very 50-50 on that. Trust me. I'm not sure Nagama even thought of the Demon King's magic around that time, but retroactively making it canon, for some reason for Zeldris to survive this, Meliodas would have literally nuked the entire battlefield and won. Seriously, because like, no, I don't even, like, would Estarossa even be able to stop that? Like, he's able to cease people causing harm, but like, do the clones count as Meliodas 100%? Like, they're his will, like, they follow his orders. But are they Meliodas? Do they have any hate towards the Ten Commandments? They seem, like, mostly indifferent. They don't even speak outside of saying, full counter! Like, we've never seen one actually engage in a conversation before. So, reasonably, that should just be death. And, like, I get it. Nagama's plan was not to kill the Ten Commandments at that point, but you start to ask questions. Because if you introduce an ability, the natural thing you have to do is give a justification for a character not using that ability if that ability is to be useful. Like soul stealing. The reason Meliodas doesn't soul steal all the time, even though this is an ability he has throughout the entire series, is because it's just out of character for him. He just doesn't feel like doing it. He's a guy who likes combat and or is a good person, so he does not want to steal and consume souls. But every other demon who does not have that tactic, not using that ability, is kind of weird, considering it is literally a GG on most people it hits. Like, outside of other demons, and I'm assuming extremely powerful individuals, ripping souls out should just be the end all be all and the first thing that they try to do. But demons don't do that. Make me wonder, why don't you use soul eating more? And that's the same thing with Meliodas. There's no established reason why Meliodas isn't opening up round start with spawning a whole bunch of clones and jumping people. There just isn't. Especially considering Nakaba has shown us that Meliodas is willing to do it. That's the thing. If Nakaba had gone in and explained like, oh yeah, or had Merlin explain, because Merlin's the one who explains Lostvayne in the first place. Merlin explains, oh, you know, Meliodas, for some reason or another, he just doesn't like using the cloning feature. He only uses it when it's extremely desperate. But even that's the thing. Would the Ten Commandments situation not be considered extremely desperate? But essentially, there would be some explanation. Like, oh, due to X, Y, and Z, Meliodas does not like to use Lostvayne's cloning ability and would rather fight his opponents one-on-one. It could even be for some stupid reason, like honor. Like, he wants the true honest battle of wits and ability between people. And like, I could get that. That's the weird thing. I could get it for Pride Meliodas. Like, Pride Meliodas doesn't seem like a guy who would ever use Lostvayne's ability. Like, he seems like the person who would always want the 1v1 himself. He kind of reminds me of Madara in that sense, where he's like, if I don't feel the pain myself, the battle's not canon. But modern Meliodas, you know, the strategist, the guy who definitely is not the biggest fan of battles, considering he spares a whole bunch of people. Like, dude, jump people like at every opportunity, because why not? That's the thing. You're missing the why not, Nakaba. That's the only reason I can get on you. Even Diane, of all characters, got a why not for why she does not use her lightning rod ability, because in order to use the lightning rod ability, she can't just store the magic that she steals in Gideon. No, she needs to redirect it straight into the earth, like a lightning rod. Because obviously lightning rods work that way. And thusly, with these characters who, by the point that she reveals she has the ability, are casually able to blow apart mountains by not even touching them, channeling that power into the earth probably wouldn't do too well for the planet around them. So it explains why she doesn't use the ability that constantly. You know why Bond doesn't use hyper concentration too much? Because he literally doesn't have his weapon for a majority of the series. And by the time he gets it, I guess hyper concentration wouldn't be useful against the Demon King. I suppose, maybe. I still don't know why he didn't use it there. I don't know. I mean, like, it kind of seemed to tire him out a little bit, and it seemed to have a limited range. But maybe hyper concentration is just a range extender, and he didn't think that was useful against the Demon King because, you know, he's literally like 2 feet away from him the entire time. You know why Escanor didn't use charge and fire? I kind of got nothing. Like, I guess the opponents he was fighting against wouldn't technically need it. By the time he starts to use it, like, it gets introduced as an ability in the Vizal Fighting Festival. And then by the time we could hypothetically see it used again against Estarossa, he's surrounded by innocents, which would explain why he wouldn't want to do it there. And then he's able to beat Estarossa without it. So it makes sense why he wouldn't use it, because it's just a whole ton of collateral damage. Same thing with something like him fighting in the Possessed Camelot or the Demon Run Camelot, where obviously all his allies are there too, and unlike Zeldris, they aren't immune to magic. So thusly, swinging around Rita with a good old charge and fire is a bit too risky, to say the very least. But Meliodas, what's the risk? What's the downsides? What do you lose from jumping people? other than some pride and integrity. I don't know. I legit can't tell you. So I think Lostvayne should be used a whole lot more. And the thing is, you can get extra creative with it. Send Lostvayne clones with everybody. Can you imagine giving everyone access to a free full counterer? Like the ability to just make their attacks twice as strong because you have a Meliodas with you. Once again, we have no limits, discussions, or anything on this ability. It's very, very, very underexplored because Meliodas himself just doesn't use it. So the limits of the range of this ability, how long these clones can last, what they can do, all that is just, I don't know. They appear like what? They appear when they're initially introduced, they appear in the final fight with the Demon King, and they appear against Fraudrin. I think those are the only times we actually get it to show up. And Meliodas has it for a long, long time. And you know what? I can give Prime Meliodas not using it. Mainly because, or not Prime Meliodas. Well, I guess Prime Meliodas because he literally doesn't have the weapon. It just doesn't exist at that point in time. And thusly he can't use its abilities. But even post-resurrection Assault Mode Meliodas that lost his emotions. One, I can assume that the Prime Meliodas that incarnated in the Escanor fight just didn't know about it, and like I explained, probably wouldn't want to use it. He seems like the kind of guy who would always want to fight himself, and that's just implied through the narrative. I can get that. But I can also get post-resurrection Assault Mode Meliodas because one, he kind of is naturally jumping people with Assault Mode cloaks, because they literally get to fight on their own alongside him. But two, he literally doesn't have the weapon. Like, he lost it. And that's why Elizabeth had to return it to him before the final Demon King fight. And that's the thing, right? It's not like Meliodas has too many battles in between the point where he can use Lostvayne because he gets it back and the end of the series. Like, ironically enough, he doesn't actually fight that many people. But even with that being the case, there's still multiple examples from the 10 Commandments jumping session to the pre-10 Commandments jumping session with Droll and Gloxinia to Derriere and Monspeet to any battle where Meliodas existed in. Because that's the thing. There's no reason not to do it. Unlike every other release or every other special ability, this ability is always useful. It's like Chassis. Like, imagine if for some reason King just stopped changing spear forms. Like, for no stated reason in the narrative. It just, we got introduced to the concept, he used it like 3 times, and then just never did again. Like, you only see the regular spear. You don't see Sunflower ever again. You don't see Increase ever again. You don't see the barrier ever again. None of that ever gets used. It's just, yeah, I'm just going to use the spear only. Wouldn't you think it would be a little bit useful if he kept changing forms because they're built for multiple utilities, multiple actions, and don't seem to take any extra stamina? Well, you Willikers. Same thing applies with Lostvayne, considering this is just free clones. And free clones is free utility on multiple different levels, from assisting other combatants on your side, such as the rest of the 7 Deadly Sins, considering every other member in one way or another has magic that could likely be benefited from someone who could either full counter it back at a person when it misses, and or just simply enhance it with a full counter if you're someone like Escanor throwing a Cruel Sun. Wouldn't that be nice? Or just jump people. Like, once again, the whole idea of jumping. The more opponents you have, the less and less of a good idea it is. We see this against Meliodas himself when the 10 Commandments show up. Arguably in a 1v1, outside of like Zeldris and Estarossa, who do just definitively outscale the man, he would have beat pretty much any, maybe not Monspeet, because Monspeet scales Estarossa, and maybe not Derriere. So maybe there's some loopholes in there, but a majority of the commandments that showed up, he could have beaten one-on-one. A lot of them were weaker than him, but guess what? They had that jump factor. They read Shonen Jump and decided to jump on in and jump him, and thusly, without an overwhelming gap in power, the jump was effective, regardless of the fact that a lot of the main combatants that he was going up against were either relative to him or weaker to him at the time. So, if only he used his little magical device to reverse the jump. Because we also don't know the limit of clones he can make. Like, supposedly it's 5, because he has like 5 holes on it, or at least he should. But then again, in the movie, he uses 7 or 6 of them, which is more. And then I think he uses a whole bunch against the Demon King. I forget how many times. Oh, he also uses He uses Lostvayne's cloning ability 4 times. He uses it the first time against the Demon King, and then he also uses it the second time against the Britannic Demon King. So 4 times. 4 times for the arguably most useful ability that any of the Sacred Treasures provide outside of Chastity. And Chastity barely counts. Like, I'm so hard pressed to find the Spirit Spears just on the same level as the rest of the Sacred Treasures because they're just so much better than them. Like, every single, even as a Lostvayne fanboy, because I think it's a really cool weapon design and also has a really cool ability, the Spirit Spears, any one of them blow them out of the water, except for maybe Dahlia's, because Dahlia's just didn't get that much showings. But Gloxinia's Basquios and King's Chastity are crazy. Crazy. So I can't compare Lostvayne to them. But for a weapon that provides a useful ability that comes at no cost, that makes every single battle easier in one way or another, the fact that Meliodas has no inverse in character or alluded to reason for not spamming it at every single opportunity, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. He genuinely uses it for a gag. He uses it for a gag, and then it goes unused until Fraudrin. Then it goes unused until the Demon King. I don't know. It feels like a waste, right? Like, at this point, you just shouldn't have made it that. If you don't want to use an ability, don't make it like that. Or give me a reason why we can't do it like that. Give it a stamina cost. Give it a magical cost. Give it a character reason. Give us some reason why not every single fight we see is a Meliodas jump fest. Because I don't know. I'm trying to think of even a meta reason right now why Nakaba wouldn't do it. And I think, once again, it's either because of he was afraid of the Naruto thing. He was afraid of the Naruto callback, and people being like, hey, wait a second, is that a blonde main character? That's utilizing a cloning ability to jump people at all times? What is this? And or he just didn't want to draw that many Meliodases. And, like, as a person who does not like to draw Meliodas either because his hair is a nightmare, I don't know why Nakaba did it like that. No, I do, because obviously, I read Record of Ragnarok. There's obviously artists that will do things just for the art's sake. But I can understand maybe not wanting to draw that many Meliodases all the time because obviously the hair is annoying. But I don't know, Nakaba. You just shouldn't have made it that. Because now Lostvayne sits as this unutilized treasure. Quite literally, it is a underutilized sacred treasure that now kind of just haunts the series. And once again, I don't think we're gonna see it get used that much in 4 Knights at all. Because why would it? I don't know, Meliodas can't invade Camelot, and that's where our Knights are heading. And even if we get attack from Arthur or his men against Meliodas, just based on our history, I don't see Meliodas really whipping them out. He would have it at hand. But look at what happened when Arthur himself showed up in 4 Knights. Bro dropped in, spawned in, saying, hey, I'm here, come seal me by jumping me. And Meliodas lunged at him in base with Lostvayne, but didn't clone himself not once. He could have had a clone hold back Tristan as he fought Arthur. But nope, didn't do that. Oh no, I'm about to get attacked from behind by this extremely powerful chaos being while I'm trying to hold down my son. If only I had a weapon or magical ability on hand that I could happen to have on my back or be holding that would allow me to deal with 2 problems at once. That's the thing. It kind of just makes Meliodas seem dumb when he doesn't use it. That's the worst thing. It makes Meliodas a reasonably very smart, very tactical character with tons of battle experience just not use one of the best abilities that is readily available to him at an instant and at all times. All he has to do is say what? Sacred Treasure Release? A 3-word phrase, and bada bing, bada boom. He has access to one of the best abilities in the series that he just underutilizes. So I don't know. I'm not all too happy about it. However, that's what I think. I think Lostvayne is underutilized and pretty much wasted entirely by Meliodas. But what do you guys think? Do you think Meliodas has a reason that I missed for why he doesn't use it? Do you think that Nakaba did the right thing by not constantly spamming it to avoid Naruto and stuff like that? Or do you think there's some other reason that I missed why Meliodas just doesn't spam it at all times? Please let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for watching once again. Please remember to leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, you're that little notification bell so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also I do a Patreon down below. You can support for as low as $1 a month for exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member to the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. thank you guys so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Dago the Pencil, writing off.